Hello, welcome to Special Topics in Language Studies, Digital Culture, Media and Language Use with me, Richard Pinner. And today we'll be talking about memes. This is lesson 1 of 2. And in the first of the 2 meme lessons, we'll talk about how memes can be the lingua franca of the internet. We'll also talk about digital slang and in-group identity. But we'll also talk about what a meme actually is and the definition and the origins of this word. So a quick review, just to refresh your mind. In this course, we're looking at 4 core concepts that underpin the main themes of the lectures, which are the network society, the theory of extended mind, context collapse, and of course polymedia, which links a little bit with convergence culture. Now, to understand today's meme lecture, I also want to remind you about another theory which sort of fits in between context collapse and polymedia. This is also a core theme and a key principle, but it's not one of the key concepts of the main lecture. But this is the idea of participatory culture, which was first posited by Henry Jenkins. And in participatory culture, you're talking about a culture where participation is actually enabled by making it easy to participate and contribute. So if you're in a participatory culture, it's really, really easy to not just be a part of the culture, but to actually contribute and to participate. So we'll be talking about that more in detail, but that's very important to understand the origins and the cultural phenomena of memes. So here's what we'll be looking at in today's class. Now, first of all, a quick definition of a meme. What is a meme? You might look at this and you might think, yes, I'm looking at a meme. But this actually isn't technically a meme. This is just a picture with some text on it. What is it that makes it a meme? Maybe the word meme doesn't meme what you think it memes. Haha. So the first coinage of the word meme, of course, comes from Richard Dawkins, who was a evolutionary biologist at the University of Oxford. And his first use of the word meme came in his 1976 book, The Selfish Gene. And he was talking really about evolutionary biology and genes in this book, and he was talking about genes as being self-replicating bits of genetic information, such as DNA and genes and that sort of thing. So when he talked about memes, he was talking about how ideas might also have a pattern of self-replicating information. Dawkins talks about religion being the ultimate meme. Now, this might come as a bit of a surprise to some of you, simply because you maybe didn't think of religion as being a meme, and that's fair enough. But obviously the word meme was coined in 1976, but that doesn't mean that memes are from 1976 and after. Actually, Dawkins argues that memes have been with us since the dawn of human history, and that any idea which catches on and is spread and is widely adopted can be considered as a meme, which is why he considers religion to be the ultimate meme, because obviously people share these ideologies and people share these religious doctrines, and they copy them and they sometimes repurpose them or they slightly alter them depending on their readings and interpretations. But the central theme of it being a shared replicating piece of information holds true. I think that's quite an interesting way of thinking about memes. Now, of course, this is a little different from what we're thinking of when we talk about internet memes. I have a short video which I'm just going to play very quickly for you, which will give you some understanding of memes.
I remember first hearing the phrase internet meme and then being kind of annoyed because people very clearly thought that an internet meme was the only kind of meme there is.
So that's Susan Blackamore. She's also a professor who studies memes. And
you think about culture being eras, epochs or times within art, and so to actually talk about the discrete units that exist that are surrounding us all the time and how they evolve, and that was super, super interesting.
All the time I was thinking, God, these brands are just going to tear me apart because of what I'm doing. But they're so in on the joke, and you have to be, and that's the thing. You can't be seen as going, no, I don't want to be a part of this. This is the world we live in. This is it. This is what's going on around us.
Do you send a lot of memes?
I do, yeah, constantly.
I
rather than communicate,
That's
all
how
the time.
I communicate.
Yeah, and they can just say a lot more than one sentence as well in some situations.
True.
Yeah, a meme is a written joke, yeah, that's related to something that happens in real life.
I think it also links with this ironic attitude to everything, where you can just express your, disdain, disappointment, a lack of trust in something. So that's why we call it a universal language. It brings you to this part of internet collective. So you feel that a certain community gets you, or maybe you're getting.
Interesting. She talks about it being a universal language. That's comparable with what we were talking about. Memes being part of a lingua franca of the internet.
I read The Selfish Gene, Richard Dawkins, back at university, and I was really inspired by the idea that you could have these units of culture called a meme that spread from person to person. So Dawkins talks about religion being the ultimate meme, how you can have religion or the idea of God as such an infectious concept that you can't not think about it once you've heard it, but then as it passes from person to person, it evolves.
To understand memes, you need to understand the concept of a replicator. That is information that is copied with variation and selection. So genes are a replicator. When animals mate or seeds grow and so on, you have information that's copied with variations and huge selection pressure, so most of them die. This is what Darwin saw back in The Origin of Species in 1859. The same applies to memes. All the information that we put out all day long, and all the books we read and the radio programs and TV things we watch and so on, they're competing for our attention. Most of them we forget, most of them nobody bothers to watch, and the very few that succeed and get millions of people involved are the ones that we see all around us in the world. Same process is happening in biology with a different mechanism.
First of all, it got a bit of attention, and it sort of sat there for a little bit and things, and I was thinking,
In this part of the
maybe they're
video,
not that funny.
this guy's talking
And then
about one of his memes
there was a
that went
fashion
viral.
show in Paris, the Dior show, and at the time Celine Dion was super hyped, so she was over in Paris and everyone was just going crazy for her. And I saw this image of her with this Dior bag, so I put the Celine logo on top of it and faked it up to look like it was in gold, posted it, went to bed, woke up in the morning to a complete tirade of messages on my phone, and Dior had reposted it, and it just completely kicked off.
We'll come back in lesson 2 to discuss about the way that memes have not only been
When I think of memes,
used
I think
by
of them as
brands
synonymous with
to
the idea of creating bits
promote
of
and
culture.
advertise, but
And I
also
think the
used
best
by
advertising and the best
governments
design
and
and the
weaponised.
best thinkers behind the best advertising and best design have always gone out to create bits of culture, and that's mimetic. The fact that you've given people this structure for them to find themselves in, they might not have called it mimetic or called it memes.
It's really important to understand what it means to say genes are selfish, or replicators are selfish, or memes are selfish. What it means is that they will get copied however and whenever they can, given the opportunity.
This is a nice one for thinking at the end. Susan Blackamore.
So when we think about the world of memes, internet memes or every other kind of memes, we think we're developing them, designing them, creating them for our own purposes, when a different way of looking at it is they are using us to get themselves ahead in the competition. And that way of looking at it shows you how very close to biology it is, and how our role is not to be in charge and doing it for our own sake. It's all really happening for the sake of the memes themselves.
So memes exist outside of our own heads and outside of our own cultures as a sort of separate entity, almost with their own desire to reproduce. Blackamore is arguing there at the end, which is very, very interesting. Now, of course, there you go, bit of a potted history of the origin and concept of the idea of a meme, but obviously that's a little bit different from just internet memes, although it's related. Richard Dawkins originally tried to distance himself a little bit from internet memes, and of course in the process became a meme himself. But he was also featured in a video in 2013 in which he went on record to say that anything that spreads through imitation is a meme. And obviously this does have strong links to the idea of internet memes. Now, if you want to read a really good book, Ryan Milner's The World Made Meme is where he talks about the origin. This is his doctoral research. Milner talks about how the memes developed from esoteric forums and message boards, and they tend to be sharing in-jokes and catchphrases. Milner also talks about memes being the lingua franca of the internet, which we will come back to in a moment. And so, as I said, this is not technically a meme. This is an image macro. What you're looking at here is something that you might recognize as being part of the mechanism of a meme, but on its own, in isolation, this is just a picture with some text. This is not actually a meme. What makes it a meme, the meme aspect of it, is when you start to see it being repurposed, maybe translated into other languages, maybe slight variations on the same theme, but a kind of evolution of it. And it might evolve into something that really doesn't look like its original form, as you can see with this fish one. And this was my favorite one because this actually demonstrates the very strange and surreal blend of humor that you often find on the internet. So here you've got a real reversal of that original meme image, and yet this same central context is intact, and that's what makes it a meme. Now, the other thing about memes is that they're very interesting because anyone can make a meme. Have you ever made a meme? If not, then you should try it. And there is actually a special forum on our course where you can share memes that you have made, and you get extra credits for making your own memes. It's very easy. You can just go to Imgur or one of the other meme generating websites, and there are templates already built in. It's very, very easy for you to create your own memes and then share them around. And this is why Bird talks about us being producers, not producers, but producers, because we actually use, but we also produce the content that we're consuming and creating at the same time. And obviously this has strong links with Jenkins' idea of participatory culture. So Bird, as I said that we are producers. Now this is a really interesting concept. Here's an example of a meme template that features a very young Keanu Reeves, and on the left you've got the explanation of how the template is used. It's used to describe humorous conspiracy theories and paranoia. And then on the right you've got a nice example of it actually in use. What if cats have their own internet? And it's full of pictures of us. So this is a classic example of how memes are sort of templates, and then you drop in new content, and that's the meme aspect of it. That's how they evolve. Now there are other areas where you can participate in culture. For anyone who's familiar with Japanese TV, you might regularly watch Chiko-chan on a Saturday morning, as my family does, and viewers of Chiko-chan can write letters which might be read out at the end of the episode, or they can submit videos even of themselves dancing or singing songs, and they might also be featured in the show. So you can actually participate in the culture of Chiko-chan and get yourself broadcast on NHK. However, this is much more guarded, and there are much stronger kind of safeguards in place and much more gatekeeping processes to limit your participation. You have to go through a selection process. So that's not quite what Jenkins is talking about with participatory culture. With participatory culture, anyone can create a YouTube channel, or anyone can create some kind of content that could potentially go viral or be seen by millions of people. You don't have to work for NHK, or you don't have to have a contract to produce a show for Netflix in order to participate in Jenkins' participatory culture. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, what about the memes? So let's go over some what I would call evergreen memes. It's a very difficult task for me to keep my lectures up to date with new memes, but some memes last longer than others. So obviously many of you will recognize the Drake Hotline Bling meme. Is it Hotline Bing? Bling. Anyway, it's one of the most widely used memes, and it's very, very simple. It's just a kind of binary. Sleep? No. Playing video games till 5 a.m? Yes. So this is represents usually a humorous choice between two things, and usually choosing the choice that makes more sense but isn't necessarily best for you, or ideally a choice that doesn't make sense. So this is a one for those of you who know about computer games. 4K 30 FPS? No. 1080 60 FPS? Yes. Also, one of my students showed me this one recently. Happy cat? No. Happy Yonezu? Yes. There's also been a cat drake. So, as I said, the internet is a very strange place, and as many different variations as possible will often find their way into existence. And of course, this one is humorous if you've ever owned a cat or even a child and bought them a toy, and they didn't like the toy but they preferred to play with the box. Another evergreen meme, one that's been around for years and years, is the distracted boyfriend, of course. Now, the distracted boyfriend is from a photograph that was taken in 2015 by a photographer called Antonio Guillem, and it just somehow became incredibly popular. It tends to be used to situate somebody who should be doing something but is actually doing or thinking about something else. And this was also used to very great effect. So in during the COVID lockdown in 2020, a Spanish journalist named Olga Tokarczuk became viral because she used this as her Zoom profile background when everyone was in lockdown doing Zoom business calls, and she actually got in a little bit of trouble with her boss, which I find kind of interesting, but I think that's genius. Another one that you might recognize is what's sometimes called the galaxy brain. So in the galaxy brain you've got, small to it's sometimes called the expanding brain meme, and it's pretty self-explanatory there. And this one I quite like. You're fired. Your job employment is terminated. You're jobbant. You're promoted to customer. Of course, other languages also have their own enduring memes. This one is from a Japanese TV drama called Hanazawa Naoki from 2013. But you might not see this one around as much. But interestingly, this one, featuring Ryutaro Nonomura, the crying politician, that's from 2014. But this one is much more popular and has survived for much longer. I think this is Japan's actually most enduring meme at the moment. But then there is this other one, of course, that's become quite popular at the moment, the Happy Yonezu. I have no idea who this guy is really, or why it's popular, or why it's funny, but it is, so it's in my lecture. Now, obviously this all links to this concept that Mark Giers talked about in digital culture, is all about remediation, participation, and bricolage, piecing things together. And this obviously links in with Jenkins' concept not only of participatory culture but also of convergence culture. So certain things might find themselves overlapping in all kinds of different ways, especially in online contexts where context can often be kind of collapsed in on itself. And then again, participatory culture, this idea that almost anyone can participate and submit things and have things be seen and valued by the community that they're a part of. So again, you might be wondering, like, there's so many memes out there and you don't understand all of them, and that's actually quite natural. If you understood all the memes, you would probably be spending much too much time online, and I think it would be impossible to get every single cultural reference from around the world. So you are going to encounter more memes that you don't understand than memes that you do understand. And if you're seeing memes that you don't understand, that's probably a sign that you're not in the right place. So if you're not familiar with the images or the original reference, you might not fully appreciate the memes. So for example, the Thanos, the guy in the top right there, the clicking his fingers meme, I had no idea what Thanos clicking his fingers meant, so I had to watch all of the Avengers movies. And that's the only reason I watched the Avengers movies. It was research. Anyway, so it doesn't matter necessarily if you get the original reference or not, because they're constantly repurposed anyway. And because humour is such a big aspect of online culture and internet memes, humour is very, very much the reign of in-groups. Like, some people don't get the joke and they're not supposed to. If you don't get the joke, you're probably not part of that group, and so you're not supposed to appreciate it. So don't feel bad if you don't get it. If you don't get it, you're not in the group. Now, one meme that I got straight away, because I'm a fan of fantastic literature and fantastic films, was "One does not simply." So this meme, you don't really see it out there anymore, but this is kind of a historical meme. So it originates from 2000, from the movie Lord of the Rings, and this is Boromir's character, played by Sean Bean, and it was used extensively and repurposed in so many different ways, and it was one of the most popular memes of the early noughties. And there were memes in different languages, there were memes related to class, so many different variations and versions, and this is a perfect example of a meme. It's not one image, but it's actually just the idea behind it, the sort of way that it's used as a template. Now, interestingly, Sean Bean is already a famous actor, but memes do have their own celebrities as well. You might recognize this person. Her name is Zoe Roth. She's now in her mid-20s, so she doesn't look like that child anymore. But she recently sold the NFT of this Disaster Girl meme for $500,000, which shows that she's still able to use her celebrity and make money out of it. Although most of the people who become memes do struggle to actually really make a significant amount of money from their memehood, because memes don't tend to be used for profit or commercialized that often, although, as I said, we'll talk about that next week. One other celebrity is Andras Arato, the Hide the Pain Harold guy, and you might have seen his wonderful face. I mean, I can see why he's a meme, really, and it's quite interesting. There's a great story about how he became a meme, and they're often used to sort of show humorous comments about what someone's smiling through an unpleasant situation. I think this one is one that we can all appreciate. My face when I check my bank account. And interestingly, this guy has fully embraced his meme status, and we'll just watch a short video about him and how he became a meme and how he embraced his celebrity status. Video adverts. Oh, don't buy this product. I hate YouTube.
I accidentally became a meme, and this is that story. My name is Andras Arato, but people might know me as Hide the Pain Harold. Before taking stock photos, I was working as an electric engineer. My specialty was lighting technologies. The stock photos began when a photographer contacted me when he saw my selfies on the social media, and he was saying that he was seeking a character like me and invited me to shoot some images. This happened almost 10 years ago. After the first photo shoots, the photographer really liked the pictures. So he invited me back several times. I was, for instance, a
Interestingly,
doctor, a university
Andras Arato
professor,
was already a
husband,
meme once
painter,
before he became
and
Hide the
many
Pain Harold,
others.
but
I first
only in
realized
Hungary.
when I had
So he
become
was
a
a
meme
contestant on
several
a game
months
show.
after the first photo shoots.
And,
I was curious
something about
what my
liking
pictures were used
milk
for, so
or
I
liking
made a
cookies
reverse
or
image
something.
search. And I discovered myself in different advertisements as a professor or a doctor. But some months later, when I repeated that search, I discovered the first meme. And that was the point when I realized that I had become a meme. At first it was horrifying when I encountered the first memes, because there were some really rude or disgusting jokes with me. So I wanted to withdraw all the pictures and close down all the websites that appeared. But that was not a real solution. It took several years till I could accept the situation, but it has brought me several new opportunities. At first,
Interesting,
people
in
didn't
another
believe
video
that
he
I'm
talks
a
about
real
how his
living
son
person.
was the one who
They
had
thought
the
the
most
memes
trouble
were kind of
accepting
Photoshop
his
creation.
celebrity status
When
as
I
a meme and wanted
embraced
to
this,
protect his dad.
I revealed my
which I'll come
identity
back to
on
in a
a
moment
Russian
because
social
that's
media
related
site.
to the
And after that,
evolution
I can
of
say
the Hide
that
the Pain
all the
Harolds.
bad or rude or disgusting memes disappeared. At first, I did not consider myself as famous. But later, more and more people stopped me on the street asking for a selfie.
I'd love to get a selfie
I do
with
this
this man.
always willingly, because I see the joy in the eyes of these people, and it's so good to make other people happy. I had the opportunity to cooperate with the biggest brands like Coca-Cola. They invited me for a shooting when I had to fly in a wind tunnel. And it was
Now, see
very,
there,
very
so that's
exciting.
how,
I enjoyed it very much.
Memes are
Now,
monetized. So
there is a
Harold,
much bigger
Hide the Pain
challenge
Harold has
inside.
made money because
A comedy
adverts
movie
have actually
about
hired
the
him
Hide the Pain
because of his
story.
meme status.
My
So a lot
management
of companies are actually
is
getting
planning
involved in this.
and talking with potential investors. Surprisingly, I get lots of messages each day on my Facebook and Instagram channels from people asking for help in their everyday life. I try to show to my fans that they should be happy even during the difficult times in their lives. And I guess memes can help in these periods to overcome the everyday annoyances. Even though this unexpected
Such a
event
great
happened,
message.
I still consider myself the same old guy, Andras Arato.
There he is there. So that's a nice video from BuzzFeed. Now, I have several other videos of Hide the Pain Harold. Obviously, I'm a big fan.
Now, he's a...
And his TED video has received over 11 million views. So people are obviously not just interested in him as a meme, but also him as a person. And he's kind of a public figure, and he's embraced his celebrity status. And as I was saying, my son told me that he's now used for a lot of dad jokes, which is kind of interesting. Maybe that's just part because dad jokes are sort of tend to be oyaji gags and bad puns, and people sort of grimace through them. I don't know, but anyway, that's an interesting development in the evolution of Hide the Pain Harold as a meme. So now let's talk another celebrity from Japan this time, Dodge. Do you know the real name of the dog from Dodge? Now, there's even a cryptocurrency named after this meme called the Dogecoin, and a very famous, very rich, very unpleasant person has invested quite a lot of money in that, but I don't think I want to talk about that person because they're a Nazi. But it's really interesting to see that all kinds of other things are related to this, like the cryptocurrency boom related to and linked to memes. And this meme in particular has very interesting grammar uses. Now, there's perhaps a little bit of history here as well. So you notice that the font is very specifically the Sans, Comic Sans font here that's always used in these Dodge memes. And now, in 1993, in the New Yorker, Peter Steiner published a very famous comic on the internet, Nobody Knows You're a Dog. And of course this has been repurposed several times by people wanting to use their own dogs. Mainly the internet is full of cats, but it does occasionally have dogs, and Dodge of course being a big exception. But obviously Dodge made its way into this Nobody Knows You're a Dodge, and I thought that was pretty funny. But who is the Dodge? Do you know? Her name was actually Kabosu, and she was a Shiba Inu owned by a kindergarten teacher who lived in Sakura in Chiba, which is very close to where I'm filming at the moment. And she died not long ago at the age of 18. Oh, a moment for Kabosu, please. So the original Dodge is no longer with us. Now, oh yeah, I can't get that to play, that's okay. Another famous celebrity born from memes is Sister Milk Tea, or otherwise her real name is Zhang Zheqian, and she was born in 1993. She's a Chinese businesswoman and investor. She was the first female billionaire in China, and she became a famous meme just from this photograph of herself posing with some milk tea in high school, and for some reason it became massively popular in China and launched her into the status of an international celebrity. But then there are also those who reject their celebrity status. We talked in a previous lecture about the wonderful Techno Viking, and the fact that Techno Viking actually sued the person who created the video that went viral of him. He was at the Berlin Fuck Parade, which was a techno music outdoor festival in the year 2000. The video wasn't uploaded until the year 2008, and then in 2010 the video had gone viral hugely. Hundreds of millions of people watched it, and the whoever Techno Viking is, nobody knows his name, he actually sued the creator of that video and had it kind of redacted, although of course by then it was too late. And I don't think anyone really made any money out of the Techno Viking situation, apart from certain merchandising companies that sold t-shirts and things. But the original guy who created the video and the original Techno Viking, neither of them I think made really much profit from that, even though it was massively successful and famous, although again this is more of a historical meme now. So again, according to Dumert, the internet has a digital sort of special sense of humour. It tends to be characterised by dark, warped, satirical and ludic humours that are more popular. So you might get memes that you just don't understand at all. And I think at the moment there's a very popular meme, 27, and it doesn't even make sense. It doesn't actually mean anything, and that's not really the point either. It's not supposed to make sense. The fun is part of the surreal nature of the humour, is part of it having no meaning. And this brings me to the way language is used in memes and online culture. So of course slang plays a very huge role in internet memes and digital culture. So what is slang exactly? Well, slang is a constantly changing linguistic phenomenon present in every subculture worldwide. And key there is the word subculture. So these are, slang is used in to show belonging, to signal that you're part of a group, to signal that you belong, that you know how to talk like that because you're one of those people. It's very similar to regional accents or regional dialects in that sense, but more rather than geographic relations, they're related to cultural belonging. So one famous example of internet slang would be lol, laugh out loud, of course. Now, I've got a funny story to tell you about this, but it might not sound funny at all because it involves the death of my grandma. So when my grandma died, my nana, my maternal grandma, texted my sister to say, sorry to hear about your grandma, lol. And my sister was a bit confused about this, but the reason my nana texted my sister lol when my grandma died was not because she hated my grandma or she thought it was funny. She thought LOL stood for lots of love, and it did used to originally mean lots of love. It's just that it became so much more associated with laugh out loud that you would never use it to shorten it for lots of love. Aww. Now, in Japanese slang, you've got the kanji for grass, which can often be used in place of lol because of the way that www apparently looks like a lot of grass, and www is short for warao, and then so the kanji for kusa becomes laughter. So you can see a kind of evolution of the slang, and even if you don't know the origins of it, you can kind of, once you know the story, there's a sort of interesting history behind it. Now, interestingly, lol is no longer really used by young people. If you type lol, it's a sort of signal that you're probably middle-aged rather than an actual young person. Young people, I hear from my niece, young people tend to use the skull emoji these days, so that's one to watch out for. Another famous bit of internet slang is to be pwned. So if you've been pwned, it means basically you've been owned. But you'll notice on the keyboard P and O are right next to each other, so it's a sort of deliberate misspelling. But there's a lot of history to why this word pwned might have come up. Nobody really knows. It's even been associated with the 1950s drunken chess master, so it's worth reading up on that if you want to know a bit more of the history. But spelling things wrong on purpose is part of the allure of internet memes, and in fact people who write in this way, they don't not know how to spell necessarily. Quite often they know both spellings, and rather than being illiterate, they're actually literate across multiple genres, and if anything more literate than people who don't know how to spell this, or people who mistakenly think that this is written misspelled because the person who wrote it is stupid. The person who wrote "oh really" in this way knows exactly how to spell "oh really," but they also know how to spell it "oh really" in this way to play with the language a little bit. This is indicated by this meme, which is one of my favorite ones. It's from a film which I don't like, called Gone with the Wind, which is a 1939 American 4-hour movie that they made me watch at work a few years ago because we had to study it for its anniversary, and it was dreadfully boring if you ask me. But at the end of the film, there's a famous scene where Rhett Butler is leaving his wife, and she says, "Where shall I go?" And he says, "Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn." And that's the end of the movie, and it takes 4 hours to get to that point. Now, interestingly, somebody translated that to TBH Bay ID Gaff, which I thought was interesting as a linguist, because frankly, my dear, frankly, to be honest, my dear, bay, baby, and I don't give a damn, I don't give a ID Gaff. So I think that that's kind of an interesting evolution of the language, but it also shows that this reference is from almost 100 years ago, being brought right up to the present, which is very, very interesting for me. Of course, if you don't get it, then you're not part of the group, and you can't really fit in with the young kids if you're an old guy, and just sort of showing that reference, I don't know if it really tells you anything about my knowledge of slang or anything, but I'm just very interested in it as a linguist. Now, we talked about memes and internet slang being kind of lingua franca of the internet, especially memes being the lingua franca of the internet. But the slang of memes could also be seen as a sort of an argot or a cant language. And an argot is a secret language which is used to prevent outsiders from understanding the conversation. And this is interesting if you compare it to the idea of memes being a lingua franca, but internet slang being a kind of argot or very exclusive way of using language. The internet slang can be born from all kinds of different ways. There might be letter homophones, special novel syntactic features. There's leet, which is where you use numbers to spell things out. Very useful if you want to make passwords. There's also specialized punctuation, etc. There's also something called lol speak or chan speak. If you want to check that on knowyourmeme.com, it will explain a lot of these words, but just be warned, most of them are kind of rude. Now, the internet, as I said, has this sort of very strange sense of humor. It tends to be quite dark and mischievous. Phillips and Milner's book, The Ambivalent Internet, is really, really excellent. I strongly recommend that. And also, of course, Ryan Milner's book about the world made meme. Milner talks about memes as a lingua franca. They're a language that they're almost their own language that extends beyond borders and of culture. And internet slang is often created from intentional misspellings and intentional ungrammatical expressions. It evolves constantly at an accelerated speed, and in internet slang you'll often find written and spoken conventions get merged. So people tend to write in ways that they would speak. And previously there was a big distinction between written and spoken language, but now I think you'll find that gap is shrinking. And there's also a special use of fonts and punctuation to add nuance to expressions. So here's an example of that. You can't show sarcasm in text. You can't show sarcasm in text. This shows if you write something in this way at the bottom there with the alternative use of capitalizations, that's used to indicate that you're being sarcastic. And it's really important. This is what we call in linguistics prosody, where the shape or presentation of a text contains its own meaning. So we also talked about pwned. So it's sort of, I think the fact that pwned is a mistake is particularly part of like the humiliation of it. So because people get often quite wound up by misspellings or grammar or misuse of language, if you say someone got pwned, it's another way of really annoying them or sort of slightly trolling them perhaps. Like this one as well. So people know how to spell happy, but they wrote I'm happy, noob got pwned in this way to kind of show how unserious they are. It's like nothing to them, and it's more likely to trigger or annoy someone. So we'll talk more about that when we talk about trolling languages in future lectures. Going back obviously to Dodge as well, so the font is really important in the Dodge memes. The use of this particular font shows that it's kind of very cheesy or humorous, but a little bit cheesy or corny, and also intentionally using strange or novel grammar use is always popular in memes and internet slang. And one of the original sources of that was, of course, all your base are belong to us. Now this is a really interesting case that came from a computer game developed in Japan in 1989 called Zero Wing. And so obviously this is a very old game. And the Japanese translation of this was, looks like, let me skip forward to this. But for some reason, this then became really popular when it was translated back into English to all your bases are belong to us, because it's sort of, it's wrong. It's funny because the English is not quite right there. And it could be seen as a sort of maybe English joke, but I don't think that's the case. I don't think it's English which is being hilarious here. I think it's more the fact that it's on it's wrong on purpose, or that they didn't care enough about being correct, that made it kind of humorous. That's part of where the fun comes from, I think. Anyway, I hope that that was an educational journey for you. I'm going to stop there and we'll just have a moment of reflection now. So was there anything that you really enjoyed learning about memes, or is there anything that you'd like to know more about? In the next lesson, we're going to go over some of these things in a little bit more detail. So next lesson, we'll actually start talking about how memes have been weaponized and how they've been politicized in certain areas, and also we'll talk more about localized memes versus global memes. Anyway, until then, thank you very much for your attention, and see you later, alligator. So there we go, that's everything for today's lecture. Thank you very much for your attention, and see you later, alligator. If you would like to see more about what my current research is, or check out my blog, please look at uniliterate.com, or you can send me an email if you have questions about the class or the content of today's lecture. Until next lesson, see you and thank you very much. Goodbye.